G'day guys, Define from Define Mods here, and she's up and running. This will pretty much be the last video I'll do on this. I sort of skipped ahead as I was getting stuck in a lot of places, and there's a lot to consider when you're trying to build a budget Prusa, and trying to save a buck, and I don't really think you save that much in the end. I mean, I'll go over a little checklist of what it's cost me, and it's still a lot cheaper than going out and buying a second-hand one. And it was sort of, I can't say it was nice, but it was a different experience, going around and collecting all the parts and trying to use all the parts that I had on hand to build this. Because what you got to realise with Prusas is they're very specific in the way that they're built and loaded with firmware. So the firmware is designed to work with that exact printer, and when it notices that things aren't right, they just don't want to get going. And I had a lot of things I had to hurdle, a lot of things to jump over, especially calibration. When you're running through the calibrations, because you want to go through the wizard, I suppose, because the wizard tells you that it's the firmware's happy with the hardware, and once it's all happy with it, it'll all comply and do what it has to do. But my stepper motors aren't Prusa stepper motors. Nothing. My rods aren't. Well, some are, but a lot aren't Prusa rods. The bed was actually bought as a switch wire boron kit bed, which I believe is the same thing. They source it from there. Things I didn't realize when it's calibrating the distance, it has to have the exact right distance on all axes. They all have to have the exact right amount of travel, up and down, left and right, back and forth. The board I got, I don't think it was particularly the exact right board to buy for what I was trying to do, but I didn't know any better when I first started, and I think I got the Einzy Rambo 1.1 or 11 board, they call it. Don't know if it's a B or what or A, and then I had to get my head around what firmware I was going to run with this, and I put in a genuine E3D hot end in there, and it came up with all sorts of errors, and it wouldn't, all this crap was going on with that. The thermistor and heat cartridge is what I got with that when I bought that E3D genuine, and I bought that yonks ago, and it was running in a boron switch wire that I had, but I decommissioned that a while back. A lot of the other parts I sourced locally and off eBay, but most of them I had laying around, like that screen I had laying around. The rails I upgraded to linear rails rather than rods, just because they're better, and I had them, so I used them. Of course they're still rods and not rails, X and Z, but that was easy enough to get going. That was just a download of printables, and a bit of a torch test to get it done. I had to stick in little spacer shims and everything to get those distances right. I think I upgraded these to somebody else's, and I'm not sure how they affected the calibration, but I ended up getting past it in the end. Initially I ran tops with bearings in them, but they seemed to play around with when I was trying to do its height calibration, so I swapped them over for the factory ones. But I think now that all the calibration's done, I'll go back and just run the original ones, or run the bearing ones. I did have plans, because I ran these are off a ender or something, I can't remember what now, the lead screws. But because they are a bit longer, I thought I'd run a sink belt up there. Just slide on a sink belt and sink them up. See if that helps any. I don't know if it will with this type of machine, but it wouldn't hurt just to slip a couple of those on and sink them up. Then I can put some whirly gigs on the little bits up top or whatever. Yeah, after a lot of calibration messing around and fart-arsing about with calibrations and stuff like that, and getting beeped at a lot, and a lot of probably one of the hardest things that I had to endure was getting these fans. These were a 3-wire fan, and when I started this, I just I took it for granted that they were just 2-wire fans, like any old ender. But of course, the Prusa isn't any old ender, is it? You know, you're not going to just jig up one of these things in a half an hour flat and have it running. So I had to source those. They weren't that expensive. I got them off, I think, AliExpress, but that was one of those things that caught me up, and I had to wait a couple of weeks for them to come through. The belts are all gates. They're not the top end of gates. They're the lower model, but they're still gates, and I'm happy with them. All the stepper motors are off any cubic M3, or what are they? Any cubic i3 that I actually tore down years ago, thinking that I might do this one day. And then when the frame came up, the frame and the rods, the linear rods all came along for a good price on Facebook Marketplace. I just snapped them up. Thought, you know, I'd have a crack at this. Like I say, the board, I wasn't sure with the board, so I just typed in Mark III board and bought what I thought was the right one. It's working, it's going for now. It's running as a Mark III, not a Mark III's. But because I've downgraded the firmware from the latest to stop it from triggering thermal anomalies, which I've got a lot of. I've got a shitload of thermal anomalies. So I backed it off to an earlier firmware. Every now and then I get a little prompt to upgrade. Yeah, it is what it is. The PSU, I went with my own one that I had laying around, as Prusa PSUs cost you a fortune. That works nice, it's quiet. I've upgraded it, done an upgrade, put a larger fan in it, and it's quiet. Machine's not too bad, you know, it's pretty quiet. There's a bit of chatter through the steppers, but I dare say that's because they're not genuine Prusa, they're older i3 steppers. Other than that, I did have the original Prusa covering for that, from the back going up to the electronics housing, but that stuff's shit. Drove me nuts trying to put it on. So I ended up getting some, what I think is sexier. You know, I have this, you know, this stuff is a nightmare to peel and get around everything. So anyway, that's long gone now. I'm going to print another cover. I did have a little cover that sat over that had the same sort of pattern as through the front there. So I'll do another one of that. And I think I'm going to try and print a little cover to go over the PSU as well, because that sort of looks ugly. So I think what I'll do is I'll do a 3D print and just have that pattern that's in there on it. But other than that, it's been a journey. Like I say, it hasn't been fun. You know, I haven't had fun doing it, that's for sure. Not like when you're building a Voron, you know, you feel like you're having fun, or when you're building a scratch built printer, you know, from scratch. You just start with bare frame and start going for. They're always a lot of fun. I've got a Rook that's halfway done. That's a bit of fun too. Look, you know, I'll probably I've got no need for a bed slingers anymore. I pretty much just run Bamboo Labs machines now. So I could upgrade this to a 4, but once again, still a bed slinger, and I've got no need for bed slingers. So, you know, once you run Core XY machines, I don't know if that's, you know, if you want to go back. you know, especially good, solid, reliable ones like the bamboos are. Cost wise, I think cost wise that's pretty much it. I don't know. Look, you know, this is AU dollars, folks, so don't be alarmed if you're looking at this from US. But the initial cost of the frame and rods, yep. And mind you, that they were all brand new. They hadn't been touched. I think what's happened is someone's bought a kit and grabbed the bare frame and upgraded it straight off the bat. It's gone straight for the bare frame off the bat, and then he's had all this gear left over and he's sold it off cheap as chips. The main board, that was actually a bit more. I ended up talking this guy down. You know, I thought $80 in the end was fucking expensive for a board, but you know, an 8-bit board, $80, Jesus, you know. Anyway, the bed, base and flex plate. Now, I had to get that off AliExpress. And like I say, that was a kit, and that was $150. And honestly, I can't remember if the bed sensor was in amongst that, but you know, I'd put another $17 on anyway, just in case. I ended up buying a few different sets of bearings. I ended up going through a few different. I ended up thinking I'd be really smart with this thing and try some of those Durlin, those fucking shitty, those things in there. They were shit. I imagine they could be good in the right circumstance, but look, the amount of slop and play they put into everything was way too much. And unless you can bite down really hard on these things and squeeze them onto the rod, no, don't worry about them. So I bought some cheaper, shorter ones in there, and no, longer ones. And then they were sticking out the end, and thank God I changed them around anyway, and ended up getting all the right bearings. There's also, you can see, I'm up for the bed as well. But like I say, I had a shitload of linear rails laying around, so I just went with those. Same with the starter motors. Same with the stepper motors. Probably use a starter motor this thing in the morning sometimes. But yeah, same with the stepper motors. They were parts I had laying around. All the leads. I'll have to tidy that up. I've had those laying around. Belts, again, that's all stuff I had laying around. Lead screws laying around. PSU laying around, and then pretty much the rest of it's all just a screen laying around. But pretty much the rest of it now is just all 3D printed. So if I come back to this and have a really good look, 387 AU, of course. What do we pick up second-hand Prusas for around here? They're always $1,000 for Mark IIIs, always $1,000 plus. Sometimes you'll see one pop up for $850 thereabouts, and you can jump on that. But I was never going to pay $850 for a bed slinger. In my eyes, are they? I don't know. Look, only time will tell if this is worth $400 to me, plus the sum of the parts I've put on it. From other projects and printers and the likes. I've always got plenty of stuff floating around and ready to be worked on. So I don't know what all those parts are worth to me. When they're sitting in a drawer, they're not worth anything. So even with all the other parts, if I sold all that back off second hand, maybe a couple hundred. So I paid $587, $600 to build one. Definitely not worth it. This printer is definitely not worth that much money. But like I say, the proof will be in the pudding, and we'll see what happens down the track. If I keep it or sell it or strip it out for parts for the next project. But it's been a lot of fun. Does look cool, I have to admit. As far as printers go, I like this ultimate style. I think that I like to. If you've ever watched my channel, I like to hot rod a printer up and make it look better than normal. But there it is, guys. I'll leave it up to you to decide if it was worth it or not. you know, it's printing, it's doing what it has to do. It doesn't do anything particularly better than an Ender 3. Will it last longer than an Ender 3? I don't know. You know, I suppose, you know, people say these things go on and on for years. It probably will, you know, with all the rails and stuff on it. They do have a bit of flex in them. I don't like the amount of flex and play that, you know, I added on the little thing on the side to try and brace it up a bit. The PSU braces the other side. If it's not for those two things, mate, this thing's like an old wobble board. But you know, it's pretty silent. Print's pretty nice, pretty quiet. I mean, there's a benchy looking all right down there. Not the best benchy I've ever seen. Not the worst benchy, that's for sure. Not the fastest benchy, but you know, I'm just trying to get it through a print to start with, and once that's it, I'll see if I can speed it up a bit and start moving along. I may upgrade the cooling duct on it, because that's a really basic looking thing that's on there. Apart from that, you know, I don't think I really want to spend any more money on it. In fact, I know I don't want to spend any more money on it. But that's it, guys. Yeah, thanks for coming along on the journey. As much as I shared with you anyway, there's a big gap from where it was last time to where it is now, but you know, use your imagination, you'll get there. Anyway, guys, that's it for now. Have a good one. Cheers.